What do I got?
Just fix your thing.
Up.
Yeah, you're there.
I gotta look pretty.
Yeah, look pretty.
It's too early in the morning for that.
Yeah. Morning, John.
Good morning.
Looks like you shaved this morning.
Did not shave this morning. Haven't shaved in about a week.
Really?
And I start vacation today, so I probably won't shave for another week.
Yeah. Right on. How's everything going?
Good.
You've probably been running ragged trying to get ready for your vacation and everything.
Well, yeah, that and the shirt shows, and we got that starting today too. Getting set up for that. And
nice.
This
is your annual buddy camping trip?
Yeah, we do our little high school buddies still get together and go.
Last year, if you remember right, on Monday we did a podcast after you got back, and you weren't feeling so hot still.
Probably was a little under the weather.
Yeah. We'll go with that. Anyway, so all right. Well, this morning we got a friend of ours, Dallin Casperson.
Yep.
And not only a great hunter, an avid hunter, but also involved with SFW, the local chapter here in Twin Falls. And you've been involved for how long now?
About a year now.
About a year?
Yeah.
Right on.
I kind of hopped in.
Both feet though, right?
I jumped in head first.
Nice.
So
nice.
Kind of came down to was hunting a lot and complaining a lot. And like we tend to do, we're out there, we don't see anything.
Each other, right?
Yeah, we don't see anything. We're like, fishing game, whatever,
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they do their best.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where me and my good friend Jesse Regal were looking like, okay, we have time. Where can we go help?
That's awesome.
Invest our time.
You grew up around here?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your...
I've been born and raised here in Twin Falls.
Nice.
So I left for... I lived in South America for a few years, and then went to school, and then moved back when I got out of school. What? Which part?
South America.
I was an LDS missionary down there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
For a couple years?
For a couple of years down in Argentina, yeah.
Oh, man, I bet that was a pretty cool experience, huh?
Yeah, it was hard. It wasn't easy, culture shock.
I would say, that probably opened your eyes a lot on...
Yeah, when you're hanging out with people that have the house the size of this room we're in.
Wow.
It makes you really grateful for when you come back to the United States and can get McDonald's.
Right.
They're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So, yeah, lived here most of my life, minus a few years there, for school. Came back to help run my family's business, which is Charmac Trailers.
Yeah. Popular trailer. I remember I was back in Illinois guiding back there.
Yeah.
And a Charmac trailer passed me, and I went, do you guys have more than one place that you...
We only build them here in Twin Falls.
Yeah, so that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how ironic to see one all the way back.
Yeah.
It was actually in Missouri. I was on my way to Illinois, but...
It was cool. We've really expanded. We used to be mostly just the Western United States, and we've really expanded to the whole country in Canada. Oh. And we actually just sent a snowmobile trailer up to Greenland.
Wow.
So awesome. It's like kind of cool little tidbit there.
Yeah.
So,
and how long has that been going, that business?
45 years.
Nice.
Wow. So my grandpa started that back in 1977. Wow. So I'm generation number 3.
Nice.
So that's pretty. Most businesses don't get to the 3rd generation.
Yeah.
So normally, I think it's about 15% get that far. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So normally the second generation, we looked into it because normally the second generation says we're done with this.
Yeah,
right.
Sells it.
Yeah, somebody else's dream, right?
Yeah,
Grandpa's dream.
It's ironic. We're kind of talking about that. Yesterday, I was talking with a couple friends, and we were just talking about nothing against younger generation now, but it's like this happened to be the grocery business. How it was the kids grew up in a good lifestyle because of. The grocery, that happened to be the grocery business started, let's say, whatever business it is. But a lot of times the kids don't want anything to do with that. And, the old saying...
It's not glamorous enough.
I guess not. That do something that, like, if it can provide the lifestyle or whatever that you would like, that should be something you may want to think about. And a lot of times businesses kind of close because... or they sell it off because their children don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome that you're third generation.
The real cool part about that business that keeps me excited about it, we always joke that we're just some good old trailer trash. But what I always like is like with a trailer, it can kind of go around with multiple hobbies. So like working on right now for this fall is a Sportsman's package. So it's like a trailer built for hunters.
Okay.
Oh.
So kind of going at that and debating taking it to the Hunt Expo next year.
Nice.
So there's that side of it. I also like razors and snowmobiles and all that fun stuff, and I build what hauls them. So I think like what I can get to use my mind to think what works best for those. And then on top of that, like I'm a horseman. We build horse trailers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun that wherever my ADHD takes me that day, I can get some stimulus, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
do you do shows at all? Sports shows?
not sport. We were going to do Sportsman's Expo last year, but at the time we kind of had this rule that one of our dealers needed to be with us, and we couldn't get one to partner with us.
Oh, gotcha.
And so we've kind of had some chats of where we wanted to take because that's where I've lately been handling more of the big picture branding of the company, is where we want to take it, is that we just need to go and put ourselves out there more, even if we're not going to have a dealer with us, because that's the whole deal, is to get sales.
Sure.
So they want the dealer there so they can get the sale. And
Sure.
that's just kind of an old time thinking that we've since changed. But
Yeah.
so we should see us at more starting to go forward.
Yeah, if it's kind of focused, especially for the sportsmen, I bet that the expo would be a
Yeah. I have some pretty cool ideas. I don't really want to reveal yet, but I've got some.
Bummer. I was just getting ready to ask, actually. I was interested.
I've talked to a lot of guys, and we kind of put together this little think tank on something type of a toy hauler conversion that you can remove the razor or whatever you're hauling, or four-wheelers, and then have it be a living space as well.
Oh, nice.
So, but it's a lot smaller and cheaper than going and buying like a
big toy hauler.
a big toy hauler,
Yeah.
and it's easier to manage.
Man,
Yeah.
I can't believe how many people I've seen that take like an enclosed trailer and turn them into their own little
Well, that was
living, like real small living
Yeah.
quarters, just because it's easier than setting up a tent in the rain.
Oh, it is. I do it.
Yeah, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, we always have a trailer around. So, like, I went down to the Salt Flats with my boy camping, and I just brought a generator and a heater and put the generator outside and put an air mattress on the floor.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's the base level, but that's
Sure.
kind of what inspired it, is all these people doing these conversions. I'm like, well, we can do it better at the factory and probably cheaper.
I actually one time bear hunting. I have a small trailer that I was hauling all my bear stuff up there with, and I had a tent, and I was going to pitch the tent and everything, and it was raining, sprinkling, but it was just supposed to rain that evening. So that's what I did. I ended up tarping everything, and then sleeping inside there. Left it cracked open so I got some air, and
Awesome.
good. But
Yeah.
well, cool.
Yeah, so I mean that's part of me. I mean, been hunting most of my life. Actually, I always growing up wanted to be a mountain man. That's what I would always say. And so that's where I really always grew up loving horses and being outside and doing things. I didn't get my hunting license until I was 16 because my dad doesn't hunt.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He has in the past, but he doesn't really care for it. He says it's work. And I guess that's true. So, and then playing sports in high school, I mostly waterfowl hunted. But when I got back from my mission in college, I really dove headfirst into archery hunting down in Utah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and that's kind of what I've done now. I've
So
picked
in
up the rifle.
Utah, you said?
That's where I did most of my stuff.
Oh, okay.
Starting out was down in Utah.
Oh, okay.
And hunting their season. And it was kind of a cool, because once you live in a different state and you can see actually live in the regulations that their fishing game puts out,
Yeah.
it makes you appreciate stuff like here in Idaho. Like a lot of people I hear talking about wanting a point system, and hadn't lived in Utah for 4 or 5 years. Not a chance I would ever want that.
100%.
Because me
Yeah.
as a new person arriving in Utah, I could never draw a tag.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there was no chance of me drawing a tag.
I know. I tell people they, for lack of better words, bitch and moan about, I didn't draw a tag.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, and I know, fortunately, if you do archery hunt, there is a little more opportunity, even though the success rate isn't maybe as good or high. But at least we get to hunt. And I mean, I see all these, every surrounding state around us, you got to draw some. I know, like Wyoming is a state that you pretty much get a tag every year, doesn't Jack?
Yeah. I mean, they have the draws, but if you don't draw, it's similar here. You can still find some open hunts that you can go on. And
but there's some
whatnot,
states, and
Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada.
You don't draw a tag, you don't get to hunt that year as a resident, which is that's a rough go.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for her.
And I think that's one of the things with SFW is what we believe is trying to find the balance, because we have the guys that want the really quality units. And I tend to land in that camp a lot.
Sure.
Is we want more quality units, but we also believe that everyone should have the opportunity to go hunting every year.
Yeah.
It's like, but we also have so much public land in Idaho. We have more public land than any other state in lower 48, but we're all condensed to this southern plain. So like you go do the Unit 39 late buck or bull hunt. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have done that and see how many people are running around out there because of how our system's set up. Where we could do a lot of benefit for the overall quality of hunting, and for ourselves if we just kind of spread ourselves out a little bit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Kind of like the way they did the tags for non-residents is because they were all piling in,
yeah, exactly.
Up just a handful of units, where now, even though they still have the same amount of tags, they're just spread out amongst the state, which I think in the long run has got to be a good effect on the non-residents. But I mean,
for us, it's great.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, at least they still get an opportunity to hunt too. I mean, if whether just depends on where they want to hunt. If they don't mind getting another tag for another area.
And really where you run into some of that is a lot of the guys that have the traditional hunting camps. Where like me, I didn't grow up with any of that, so I was kind of like, where can I find game?
Yeah.
So I was bouncing between unit and unit, scouting a lot.
When you say traditional, you're talking about like 5 guys come together?
You got like, my grandpa hunted here, I hunted here. So like you get a lot of guys up in like 43 that are that way. Like they always camp in the same pull out, have their pack string. They're always in the exact same spot every single year.
Yeah.
And that's where, that's just where they go hunt.
Yeah.
You know? And so where you've talked about lots of changes that probably should happen, at some of these meetings, you get a lot of resistance from those type of guys because there's the chance that they might not be able to do that, which I'm very sympathetic with. But at the same time, we can't, as hunters, we can't be selfish, right? I mean, our game's not an unlimited resource.
True.
If we don't manage it correctly, we're not going to have game for the next generation. And it might not affect the 3 of us here. We're probably all okay. But if we don't start looking forward, it's like, okay, how do we have more deer on the ground in the next 10 years? There's no plans for that. So that's the most frustrating thing. There's some loose end planned out there by Fish and Game, but there's no actual, like, these are the steps we're going to take. They just say, we want this many deer on the ground in 2030.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, well, we're going to do this and then this and then this. We're going to do this habitat restoration. We're going to plant sage seed in 46. We're going to do these things that could help. There's none of that. Where other states, you go and research it. Utah, they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they've learned that organizations like SFW, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, Pheasants Forever are their best allies because they give them money. And so they can go and do these, where Idaho Fish and Game tends to just want more control and hold it back.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's where our biggest deal is now, where we've been over what the other guys in the group and what I jumped in doing is going to lunch with Fish and Game people, trying to build these relationships so we can get a better trust set up there. So they don't see us as some group trying to take control from them. We just really want to help.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. And I think you and I have talked about this, like on the phone and stuff, about how I know there was people kind of thinking that SFW was all about high-end hunts, and almost like a money type thing more than anything. But now talking to you after I've got to know you, actually learning more about it, it's easy where I can see standing behind it, because it isn't all about that. It's you gotta they're looking at long term. Yeah,
and like when we have our committee meetings, we really try to, like, when they did their regulation stuff. That they released their proposed regulations last February. Yeah. And we went and sat down and looked at it, and kind of everybody in the committee got to have a chance to talk. So like one guy, I can't remember his name now. That's bad of me, but maybe it's better I don't say it anyway. He wasn't really okay with them moving the elk tags in 45. They had that December hunt. 45, that they moved it, I think, into the October hunt or something. I don't remember exactly where they shifted the tags to, but it was making it less like that was his traditional hunt.
Oh, okay.
And it was something to me that I didn't really care, but it was important to him, so I supported him. Yeah. So that's where it's like, it's not everyone just trying to fight, I want more landowner tags, I want this and that and that. It's truly not that. It's really what is how can we try to make everyone's hunting experience better?
Yeah.
So, and that was really cool, is because then what I opposed was when they're trying to raise the 54 elk tags, because we have a very special elk unit there, and I was very against wanting to raise the tags there because we have so much elk hunting opportunity. We don't really, it was going to bump the draw odds 0.2%. So it wasn't going to do anything. So you're just going to get like 5 more people out there hunting, but then you're going to remove that top end, which you can potentially get a 400-inch bull in that unit.
Yeah.
There's a legit chance for it.
Yeah.
And so where that was kind of where he was like, okay, I'll support you and help you on the 54 if you help me on the 45. So that's where we both were able to go talk to Fish and Game and say, these are the 2 that we don't like. And we were able to accomplish a lot there.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that got shot down in 54 as well.
I'm very glad. I saw the public comment on it, and it was much more in favor of not.
Really?
Yeah, of not adding those tags, which I was kind of surprised, to be honest. I kind of thought a lot of people would want it.
Yeah.
Because everyone says, I wish I could draw a 54 tag. I do.
But I'm telling you what, you do draw it, and you're going to have a hell of a hunt. Yeah. So it's going to stay like that because they didn't raise the tags. It potentially could stay like that for longer years. Yeah.
And then that's one comment that one of the Fish and Game guys out of Pocatello mentioned to me, because I went up to Boise this last spring, and kind of they give you like your 60 seconds of fame or whatever. You can go up there and say your grievances. And I went up there, and because they kind of, when they did the Magic Valley hearing, they kind of had some discrepancy in the numbers of what they were saying on like harvest statistics and stuff. And then they tried to backtrack that they said that, but I was sitting in the building. And that's where one thing I've done well in my professional life is numbers. Like I've always been very good at math. Like I understand statistics. And when they kind of said offhand, like, oh, we only think of these new tags that are brought in only 30% success rate. I'm like, well, you can't, as a statistic rule, you can't say that, because the current success rate across all hunts is 80%. So you have to go off an 80% success for the new tags you add in, which adds 8 more bulls hitting the ground, which then adds to herd dynamics. Like, so that's just seemed like a very uneducated thing to say. And I think it was a little offhand, and I think I kind of talked to the individual that had said it, and they kind of were walking it back afterwards. And I don't think that, but I had mentioned that in there at the Boise deal, and the gentleman came out to me and he said, well, I hope one day you'll at least get to draw it. And I'm like, you don't understand. If I don't draw it in my life, I'm okay. I have plenty of hunting opportunities. I know I can go do it. I just want it to be the best opportunity or best time for the person that does.
Yeah.
That's always I know I can't go do every hunt. I'm not the means that I could go pay for a hunt there or do anything like that. But that's just where kind of my vision is I know I'm not going to draw every hunt, but I would like every unit to be maximized to its potential. Whether that's giving everybody as much opportunity, that's what it's decided, or let's grow some huge animals, I guess. Yeah. Which there's a balance for it. You can have both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Because I think that's what a lot of people at SFW think, is that we want to cut all the hunts down. It's going to become a rich, like what you said, or pay to play, rich people only type of thing. And that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
We like to hunt, and we want to hunt every year, and I'm not that rich.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I hope it kind of stays the way it is as far as the points and all that, not having them and everything. But I always tell people, just be thankful that we do have a place. And that's it. People who told me this year, several of them, that they didn't draw. It's like, but they're going to go probably archery hunting. I would say at least, even if they're just not archery hunting, you can buy an over-the-counter rifle tag and go. If you have a chance of getting the first come first serve, elk tags as well as over-the-counter deer tags. Just be thankful that you still can hunt, because there is a lot of states that you can't.
Like Nevada, like you said, or California, or Washington and Oregon. That's why they all come here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have my cousin that pulls up with his California plates every single year, and I always tease him. So, I'm like, you better be careful with those. You might want to take them off.
Yeah, really.
I have a spare set of Idaho plates hanging out somewhere to put on.
I'll rent them to you.
Exactly.
I'll rent them to you. So.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, and so you're on the committee. Is that what you're?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a committee
But I know
member.
you're really like the main guy for around here is
It's Scott
Allen. And
So
you and him have become really good friends. I guess.
yeah, I grew up. My parents live next door to Scott.
Okay.
So Scott has a son, Bryce, that's my age, and a couple other boys that are around my age group. So I was always kind of running around his place, shooting BB guns, getting in trouble. But Scott was the real like driving factor for me to like get my hunting license, because it was never that he's next door and kind of took me. He knew all these interests I had. So through the Boy Scouts one year, we did a trip that he planned through our Boy Scout troop to go to the Wind Rivers fishing in Wyoming, and kind of we did a big pack trip, and it was my first experience doing anything like that. And I was like, man, this is it. You know, like high country, above 10,000 feet. Nice. I'm not a big I don't like to fish much. Like I like to catch, but I don't have the patience. I
can relate to that.
Sit there. But it was still a great time. Caught a pile of fish, and after that, he's like, you know, you could plan these trips if you got your hunting license. So I kind of went and got my hunting license with these grandiose ideas that everything was a pack trip into the Wind Rivers.
Right.
And when I've now learned most of it is running around out in the sagebrush.
Yeah, for sure.
But he kind of guided me along that way. And during that time, so right now he's the vice president, because he was the president but stepped down to vice president just because.
For all of SFW, he's president?
For Idaho. For the state of Idaho.
Okay.
So he stepped back and said, I don't want to. He's like, I'm still going to be very involved, but he's retired now and and wants to just go hunting.
Yeah.
But he still puts forth a bunch of time. And so really he's kind of, I will just say it, he's probably the one why we get to hunt wolves in Idaho. Because he dedicated thousands upon thousands, him and their team there, going up to Boise to state hearings, talking to senators, talking to Governor Butch Otter at the time, really pushing for us to delist wolves. And that was a big, long fight to get that done and to get it to where it is today, where you could buy 15 wolf tags.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people might try to say it was this or that, but like I was around and I saw what he was doing and going up there. And I even went up there I even interviewed him after he went up there one time for a college paper and got all the information of what they were involved in. It was really complex, a lot more complex than you think, to go do something like that. So much politics that the average hunter has no idea.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, and that's just kind of where I was when I was looking for a place to kind of land and start putting forth my efforts into hunting. Was I wanted somewhere that was active, you know, that was wanting to do something, you know, not just like a place, okay, we're going to go fundraise and then we're going to write Fish and Game a check, say, here's your check, you know, hopefully you do well. It has to go towards this animal, needs to go towards sage grouse, you know. No, I wanted to be getting my hands dirty. How can we do politics? How can we fundraise? Can we make lasting change for the betterment of our hunting here in Idaho?
Is it a yearly fight?
Yeah. So mostly in the spring, you're fundraising, right? Because you have your banquet, and so you're trying to get people to buy tables, get raffle stuff, get people to donate. So you're doing a lot of that. We took a break because we were all really tired after the fundraising. So right now we're kicking back, like this summer we've kicked back into it, and that's where we're kind of started some other projects and say, okay, what's our goals? Do we have there's always things like commissioner seats, you know, like do we want to back? Do we want to back the current commissioner? Which Greg Cameron's a great guy, you know. So it's like, do we want to go do those things? Or do we want to go and back someone else? Do they do it with our goals, you know? So it's very, very much politics that I never thought would be involved in the hunting world until you get into it. Because those changes are huge.
But, I mean, realistically, you're kind of our sound. You're our voice. Yeah. You know, so it is important that we do, it is important that we do find whichever organization or all of them, whatever you want to back up, endorse, whatever you want to call it, because they are our voices for
exactly. I encourage anyone I talk to, go to just call up if you want to go call up Mule Deer Foundation. Call them up and say when their meeting is, go see if that's a place you want to land and go help. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Wild Turkeys, Ducks Unlimited. There's for any hunter, Pheasants Forever. There's any type of hunter. There's somewhere you can go. And I feel if we're going to claim as hunters that we're really conservationists, just going and buying your tag and going hunting every year doesn't make you conservationist in my mind. It's you actually going in forth and putting forth your spare time and saying, I want to make hunting better, like leave it better than when I arrived.
Okay, now that I feel guilty, I've actually been, everyone you've talked about, I've been involved with, at some point or another.
And most hunters have to a point. They've gone to the, at the minimum, they've gone.
Being on the committee and stuff too. Yeah. And they are fun.
Yeah.
It isn't work the night of the,
oh man.
but it still is fun. You do feel a little bit of satisfaction as a group,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where most hunters have at least done something, and most hunters, if you call them and say, hey, we're planting seed, normally they'll come.
Yeah.
But it's definitely needs the heads of those organizations that's on the flip. If they want to actually do some lasting change, they need to plan those things, because we could call, I know I have guys in my phone that I could call, and say, hey, look, we're doing this project. Could you come out and do some service on a Saturday? They would right away would be there.
Yeah.
But they don't have the time and means to go serve on a committee, because I'm not saying everyone needs to serve on a committee, but just be at least able to answer the call.
Yeah. For sure.
Because they might not be able to directly help you, but it's going to help someone down the road.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I believe in karma. So.
That's true. Yeah, you reap what you sow.
Some of the tags, that I tease Scott Allen, some of the tags he's drawn, I'm like, you got a lot of karma coming to you for a lot of years of helping and serving. So.
Yeah, no lie, huh? Yeah. Have you drawn any of the big? Do you put in for sheep? And
I put in for sheep every year. I haven't drawn any of them.
Have you put in for goat or moose or anything?
No, because I figure
sheep's the toughest.
Yeah, I get the sheep one if I can get it done while I'm young. Some of the moose and goat hunts. Some of the goat hunts, they have pretty good road access when you're older, And the moose hunts, I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that. I mean, not saying it's not hard, but it's not as physically demanding. So.
Yes. You won a sheep hunt, didn't you?
I won 2.
The room goes silent.
Well, I tell people that, and then I lose all my friends. Right. So
it happens.
I won one down at the Western Hunt Expo. It was originally a stone hunt, but we did some. The dates couldn't work for me because of the years, and then it originally worked, but it got bumped for COVID, and I couldn't go.
Oh, okay.
So we switched it around with a friend of mine. Ended up going on a doll hunt in Alaska. Mistake. I should have went on the stone hunt, made it work, but then I
just because it's harder to get.
Yeah, well, they're $75,000 now.
Are they really?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's I'll never be able to buy that myself. So maybe should have taken that chance, but.
That's what I thought it was a stone sheep hunt when you first said you won, and then I'm thinking, because it did take you a while to go on, a couple of years to actually go. Then I'm thinking, oh, maybe it was a doll, and I thought it was a stone.
And the doll hunt was awesome. I had a great time. Hardest thing I ever did. Learned a lot about myself. Going out that physically demanding, basically backpacking for 15 days straight. Because I shot mine the last morning.
Did you really?
Yeah. So my
so
buddy,
that really doesn't just happen on videos.
No.
Doesn't that always crack you out? It makes you wonder exactly how many of those really was the last day. No, I'm sure a lot of them are.
Yeah. So that one there was plenty of sheep, but it's just always it's going around the legalities of making sure the ram's legal.
Right.
And weather, did you run into fogged in?
Fogged in. Sat in my tent for an entire day one time just because I couldn't see 10 feet outside the tent.
I mean, hear that.
You're like, you can't, doesn't matter, you're here.
Yeah.
Right. So, luckily I downloaded a couple movies on my phone.
Did you?
Yeah. And entertained myself a little bit.
You did get a good ram though.
I got an all right ram. Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy with him.
Yeah.
I think he was like 35 inches or something. Very last morning we were hiking.
That's true. It's last morning, so you.
Well, it was last morning, and I wasn't being picky either. We were kind of going up this draw because we had to go up this draw and up and over a ridge to get to our takeout, and we looked up and we saw 5 white specks, and we're like, oh, game on, and we got closer, and he's like, oh, one's legal, and so we sat there and it started raining and pouring and blowing sideways and. Had to make a pretty good shot to get it done, but you got it. But I got it done.
Nice.
So,
how far? Or what other sheep did you draw? Or win?
I won a Mexico desert sheep hunt.
Oh, the second hardest one to get.
Yeah, so I went down, that was a year ago, February, so I did 2 sheep hunts last year.
Wow.
So my wife almost left me, jokes. Because my wife, when I went on the Mexico hunt, was 9 months pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Dude. That is
I have a great one at home. So that one was totally different experience. That's probably the funnest hunt I've ever been on.
Really?
Well, they're like, oh, normally the guys that hunt here are a lot older than you.
Really?
Because they're normally guys trying to complete their slam.
Oh, yeah,
got a lot
true.
of money.
Yeah,
and
they're
so,
saving their money and finally like...
I show up and like guys come out and grab my bags and take them to my room. And I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. And I'm just I'm trailer trash from Idaho. You know? And you come out and there's this huge breakfast for you. And I'm like, this is almost too much. And then you go back and there's lunch. And like, okay, you can go take your nap now. I'm like, no, I would rather go out and hunt. Can we just go out and hunt?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we can, you know. And I knew Spanish from living in Argentina, so I was able to communicate directly with the guides and stuff. So they're like, oh, normally guys want to sleep. I'm like, no, I'd rather just go get after it.
Yeah.
So
how many days that take you?
2.
Okay. I was saying, I'm probably up right there.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, what the sheep hunts I've guided on and scouting and been on a couple others, just helping. The sheep, especially all of them have been in the lower 48. It's like they're busy all day.
Yeah, they're out and moving.
Yeah.
Down there it was hot, so they would get up because we were kind of end of February, so it was getting warm again.
Okay.
So they would go and bed down, but they didn't have anyone. That kind of ranch we were on, they typically they'd take you around in the high rack, right?
Yeah, right.
They had the high rack, so you
Right.
glass, like we'd had our spotter set up on the high rack because that's how you get above the bushes.
Yeah.
But they never had any, so they would always try to shoot them for these sheep from the high rack.
Really?
Yeah, at this ranch, which I thought, I'm like, we ain't doing that.
Wow.
I'm like, I want a big one. I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, probably a lot of guys just want to complete their slam and they just don't really.
So and they're normally older, and so maybe they're physically not demanding, because that country that I just told my guide, I'm like, can we just go out and hike? Like get up on top of these mesas and start looking around? And he's like, you want to do that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's refreshing.
Huh.
And so my good friend Jesse Regal, I mentioned earlier, went with me on the hunt.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he went down just to glass with me.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, me and him were like, no one's done this before, because we got up there and started seeing way more sheep.
Huh.
And that's how we found my ram.
Huh.
Did
you kill pretty good?
Yeah, I killed a 185 inch. He's a toad. He's the second biggest ram they ever killed on that ranch.
Really?
Nice.
And I 100% contributed because I got out and hunted like I would have in Idaho. Mm-hmm. You know, got out, hammered it, glassed a ton, stayed out all day.
Yeah.
Didn't go and take my nap. Which I tend to do on the mountains, but there I was like, I'm on the sheep.
Yeah, that's true. I know when we're elk hunting stuff, a lot of times we do kick back. But sheep are also, like I said, they're kind of more active during the day, a little more active than like elk can be and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think sheep, and I'm no expert, I don't think they feed at night as much.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So I think they're out moseying around feeding all day.
And they're always bugging them ewes.
Oh, yeah. Even the
poor ewes,
they get ran around like crazy.
Oh, I know. Pawing at them when they're trying to lay down and relax.
I've never felt bad for a mule deer doe in the rut, but I do feel bad for the ewes 24/7.
Because it is 24/7.
Yeah. So, no, there were totally 2 different spheres of hunting that I went on, and it was fun. You had 2 different types, type 1 fun, and then type 2 fun, where you like look back like, this sucks, but afterwards like, man, I can't wait to go again.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Mm-hmm. And is that the only 2 sheep you've killed?
Those are the only 2, so hopefully someday draw Idaho, and maybe I can win a 3rd one.
The stone sheep?
I won't tell anyone if I do. I'm just gonna go hunting one day. So, yeah.
Yeah, then with you being an active archer too, you still get a chance to take time and hunt Idaho.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so last year I didn't get to hunt Idaho as much because I took so much time off for sheep hunting, which is like understandable. I mean, I hunt with my bow 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, so in Idaho we have some great opportunities to hunt with your bow. So I did get out, chased some really good deer, found some really good deer, just because due to time constraints probably didn't get it done. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I kind of told you what some other constraints. So some Billy Bob Thorntons out there might have done some illegal stuff on one. No proof to that. Yeah. But that's just kind of this year I'm really excited though, because I kind of missed doing more in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's just every time I've gone out of state and done something, I always think like, whoa, man, Idaho's just as good. Like I've gone to Colorado and I'm like, this is fun. Good time to see new country, but I could find better here in Idaho because I know it.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
And I think that's one thing in Idaho I think a lot of our residents take for granted is how well we can get to know units with our current system.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Knowing any of the units, whether it's the Sun Valley units or Middle Fork units or even some of the down here towards Twin Falls units, if you can just go spend the time, you can find good critters of all species.
Absolutely.
You know, you can find good elk, you can find good deer, good antelope, and good tag opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Getting back to SFW, they are like the main sponsor of the expo, right?
Yeah, so that's the Utah. So there's we talked about this before the show, and it kind of jogged my memory. So there's a Wyoming SFW, a Utah SFW, and an Idaho SFW. They're all interconnected, but so they are the main. They're just a lot stronger in Utah than they are up here in Idaho. So they are the main sponsor. They put on that Western Hunt Expo in correlation with the Mule Deer Foundation.
Okay.
Which is an amazing, super conservation success. I don't know if you saw, SFW wrote $50,000 checks to help feed deer in Utah last winter because they had such a hard winter.
Yeah.
And probably saved thousands of deer by doing so. You know, so, and that all comes from the expo.
Does SFW Idaho do some of the same things as far as helping to feed the animals?
We do as much as we can. We're a lot more underfunded than Utah is. We don't have that big expo to get. That's Utah's only funds because they kind of, whatever you do in your state, it's kind of eat what you kill. So we get our funds from our yearly banquet and any other fundraising we do.
How many banquets are in Idaho for SFW?
Just the one every spring.
Oh, really?
And it's a big banquet. Like we rented the Shopko in the mall this year and filled it. So we had 600-700 people. It's not 100,000 that you have down at the Utah, but those people are probably spending more money than per person to go to that versus the other ones.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's where sometimes I know people in the past have gotten annoyed of whether it's us or Mule Deer Foundation. They feel like people are always knocking on their businesses' doors or stuff like that. But it really, truly does help.
Yeah.
I don't think they sometimes forget that. It really does help. And I know it gets annoying, but we're kind of left sometimes with no other choice. Like we want to do these projects and we have these big lofty goals, but sometimes they take money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm actually surprised no one's really pushed it to do like a banquet in Boise.
We've talked, we've had a chat about it this spring, you know, it would be, because there is a Sportsman show in Boise. Yeah. It's not that big. I don't know if you've been to it.
Yes.
So it's not that big, but it's not, to me, I think you could draw from the Pacific Northwest crowd that maybe doesn't make it all the way to Salt Lake, because that's another 5 hours from Boise down. So you could there's a lot of hunters in Oregon and Washington that would probably benefit from doing something like that. It's just kind of, and it showed with backcountry hunters and anglers. They had their rendezvous a few years back in Boise, and it was a slam dunk, had tons of people there. It shows that we could do it. So me and Scott have had the conversation. We're just trying to figure it out.
A lot of it would be maybe just getting some key people over in that area involved to help put a local committee there. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's enough sportsmen over there and businesses over there that I'm sure would donate to a banquet there.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things we'd love to do and get like First Light involved. First Light's local Idaho company, you know, if we could
Everly Stock,
you know, there's some great people. There's some great gun makers in Idaho now, you know, they all go to the Salt Lake show. And so it's not something it's something very preliminary. Don't know for sure we're going to do it, but it's been some conversations we've had. Because that would help immensely if we could get the similar type of funding. Because, I mean, I think Idaho has better overall hunting than Utah, and we could make it even better if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So,
just getting
or if we could just get the right funding going.
Yeah.
So.
But I think, I mean, when you mentioned, you know, them being able to write a check to help feed. Yeah. That's a big thing.
It's huge.
You know, 'cause I remember years ago, I mean, it was every year. It was just like you knew they were going to have plenty of hay and stuff to help feed the animals. And those feeding stations like they used to be are just,
Fish and Game has,
as well as the wolves.
Well, the wolves kind of ruined that.
They did a lot of that because it was like baiting
basically.
No kidding.
So that kind of, in Fish and Game's defense on that one, they did that program for years, and I think they closed that down 5 years ago officially. It's because they'd have all the elk.
Yeah.
In like Unit 48, for example, they had that feeding station behind the ski hill there.
Mm-hmm.
And the elk and mountain lions would just run the perimeter of that and just take their easy pickings. It was not good.
That part was sad. I remember hearing like a few years after the wolves had been here and when the population was really going up, how those feeding stations went from hundreds down to way less than 100 and 35, that type of thing. It's sad.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we can still kill wolves.
Yeah, now we can. And that's one of those things that's constant. I thought it was done. Like that fight was like done, wrapped up. But you'd still be surprised at how much opposition there is to that still.
Really?
So when we went to like the Boise committee hearings, probably 6 or 7 people got up to voice concerns about wolves, about hunting wolves. And they were mostly out of the Ketchum-Sun Valley area or the Boise area. So take with that information what you will.
Right.
Exactly. Those people don't have them in their backyards.
Yeah.
Right. Like a lot of the ranchers up in like the Cary area and Fairfield area, salmon, they're very much like, no, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes ranchers and more conservative folk struggle with is because sometimes those situations where a wolf kills a cow, the rancher normally just kills the wolf, right? He has the right to now.
3 S's.
Yeah. And so where that doesn't get documented.
Yeah.
But the opposition loves documentation.
So, and I mean, I actually heard some other stories of attacks on humans.
Yes.
That aren't documented.
Yeah.
And they said that they literally were told, keep your mouth shut about this.
Yeah. And so I don't know, I haven't quite seen why, if like federal wildlife officers are telling people or Fish and Game are telling people to keep their mouth shut. To me, that screams another agenda. But I mean, that's some deep politics that maybe we want to talk about here.
Yeah.
So that's where, to me, it's like, if we don't document it, like what can we do, right? Like that they're going to use the undocumented, that there's no documented attacks against us in these hearings, right? Saying like, look, there's no wolves, you need to stop, you've handled the problem. Well, if we stop hunting them, because there's some guy, I'm going to say there's probably 1% of the hunting population does 99% of the wolf management for us.
Yeah.
Because they're hard to hunt.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some guys, especially up north, have figured out calling them and stuff, and kudos to them. Really happy they're doing it.
Yeah.
But if we cut off them being able to shoot 15 wolves a year, the population's going to boom back up and we're going to have problems again. But right now we're kind of at a great equilibrium where the elk populations are surging. So that's the one thing about Idaho. And about being on SFWs, you kind of, when you go talk to Fish and Game, because there's a lot of really great people in Fish and Game. And they're really trying hard to do their jobs.
Their hands are tied to a point?
To a point,
would you say?
So, I mean, there's lots of red tape a lot. And so that's always hard. And that's where you at times have to get state legislature involved. And then they're also tied by funding. And a lot of that seems to be at times like mismanagement sometimes, but I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like, well, if we need funding, we need to cut back in other areas. And that's where maybe I'll get grief for saying that from some of these people, but that's just kind of how, from the outside looking in, that's what it looks like. I run a business. If you don't have funding to do your projects, it's normally a lack of management.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a government agency.
Yeah, true.
So, a lot of these people, though, that are on the ground, especially a lot of our local people, are really good. And they're trying hard, and you get to look at the numbers and see which units are growing and why, and it's like a random unit, because I want to hunt it this year, I'm not going to say deer populations have boomed over the last 2 years, and they don't know why.
Really?
And they're trying to figure it out. While the units around it are all declining.
Wow, what unit?
Yeah. We'll talk off camera.
Shut these cameras.
But I mean, that information is public for anyone that wants to go get it. They can go call Fish and Game and ask for population levels, you know?
Yeah.
But, and like another good example is they're trying to figure
We're actually going to play this episode after the fall. So
after the fall, so it's all done.
Or we'll just cut that comment out.
Yeah.
So it's like unit 55 and 54 have been tied as units together for ever, right? It's very similar demographics, a lot of ag ground, a lot of ranch ground, pretty good. 55 is more mountainous than 54, but 54 probably has more overall public land, I would say.
Yeah.
But like right now, 54's deer population is struggling immensely.
Yeah.
And 55's is booming.
Huh.
And they don't like they're trying to figure out the correlation.
Winter grounds, possibly.
I think a lot of it is
Lions.
Well, there's some lion kills a lot of it. But I know you had Hobie on here, and Hobie's done a pretty good job managing a lot of the lions.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you that he's not seeing them, but I mean, there's always conflicting reports with that. A lot of it is they were doing lots of doe hunts.
Oh.
In 54 and not 55.
That's true.
And now they just cut all those doe hunts because they finally flew because Fish and Game only flies a unit about every 5 years. So they flew the unit and saw, oh crap, so they cut all those doe hunts out.
Gotcha.
And then cut down the youth hunt numbers. And I think the buck tag they left it at 300. They were talking about cutting it to 200 buck tags on the regular rifle, but I did the numbers on all the tags with the unlimited archery hunt there, and I think they cut it down, I want to say like 600 deer tags out of that total. So
Speaking of which, I know we talked a little bit about flying, and you were kind of telling us why. I honestly thought they flew every unit every year.
No, they don't. Yeah. So, I mean, and there is...
But people, I guarantee, don't mean to interrupt, but I guarantee people think because they know Fish and Game flies that they do fly, and then they get mad at them. You know what I mean? But they don't realize what you're about to say, how that contributes to that.
And it's something just kind of like, I don't think it's anything that current management could do different. They have their budgets, like we said.
Yeah.
And they don't own a helicopter like other states.
Yeah.
So what they have to do is rent a helicopter from the state of Montana, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And then they're limited to when the pilot and that helicopter can be down here. So they can't schedule anything. They literally tell them, hey, we can be here this day.
Oh.
And then they have to scramble and be ready to fly.
Gotcha.
So like the current Fish and Game, they're kind of like, we'd like to fly every year, but we can't because we're limited to this resource. And I can't remember the exact number per flight hour it was, but it seemed pretty outrageous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I think just the maintenance on them. I was just a friend. I have a friend that's a helicopter pilot, and just not counting. I was talking, hey, I want to go fly, whatever. And he's like, I said, I'll pay for the fuel. He's like, that's the cheap part. It's like $300 an hour just in maintenance for those things. Yeah. And then fuel on top of that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you going, John?
Yeah, I'm keeping that secret too.
Fair. We all got our secrets, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's where states like Utah, which probably have done like SFW and other Mueller Foundation and Rocky Mountain Elk are a lot more prevalent in Utah, that it's helped with a lot of other funding projects. So it's not necessarily they're paying for helicopter time, but they're paying for feed, which then opens up money for Utah to buy a helicopter and maintain it and do those kinds of things. So it's kind of those chain reactions, give and take type of things.
Yeah.
So where they're flying, if not every year, every other.
Yeah.
And so that's where kind of...
That makes a big difference as opposed to every 5 years.
Yeah.
It can make a big difference.
Exactly. And that's just with Idaho's system. That's where I say a lot of the time I think Fish and Game is doing the best they can. Because when you're looking at, they're doing regulations for big game every 2 years. So, but they're going off of harvest statistics. They do their previous count and then have their math problems too, because they can't see every deer or every elk, but they can see what they see. They have their formulas to go and calculate how much how big the population is in that area. Then they go from that, take harvest down year after year, what expected harvest, and then do a tag recommendation.
They do rely a lot on the public's help,
and most of the public isn't very good
Yeah.
at answering their survey.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the survey, when it was initially released in, I think it was 99, was when the survey first came out. It was mandatory, or else you wouldn't be able to put in for the big game draw. But then a lot of people got upset about that because they didn't put in their survey. And so it's really like, it's your problem.
It's your fault.
It's your fault. It's an email or a
Yeah.
phone call, you know. Just take the phone call, say what you did, or
Yeah.
do the email.
Right.
And then they scrap that. So it's really something they should, in my opinion, and I've said this, is that they should probably look into is doing that again. If you're going to have to rely on those harvest statistics, those people can't buy a tag until that survey's put in.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like you're locked. You can't
Yeah.
buy a license. You can't buy anything until your survey's put in.
Yeah.
And you can go put it on their Go Outdoors Idaho website. You could do it all right there. But I'm trailer trash from Twin Falls, so sometimes it falls on deaf ears. I keep joking about that, but so that's where that is, and that's where us at SFW have looked at it like, well, we need to fly because this year, this problem in the South Hills is probably 3 years coming, 4 years coming, really, maybe even longer.
I think
you know,
longer.
It's because they haven't
Seriously.
been able to fly it. Because
Yeah.
So I mean that makes sense.
So like when they flew it in 2017, I went and read the report. It seemed like how they were implying was they had 600 rifle tags at that time and then instituted all those doe tags. So they thought the population was on the up. So they wanted to curb the population to keep it down. But there's none of the ranchers out there. This is not the problem area of people complaining about
Right.
mule deer.
Right.
You know? Like that's our backyard. We know these ranchers and farmers, us three personally, you know.
Yeah.
They want their landowner tag and want a big buck on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This isn't some of these hippie farmers, I say, up in Sun Valley that are putting in these $1 million claims because some soybean got eaten, you know. But they, not to bash anybody.
A little late on that.
Sometimes I forget I have a microphone and this is going out to the public. So looking at that, it's like, well, from their data, it looked like they're making a good choice, but then they didn't realize all the success that happened.
Yeah.
And so it just decimated. So when you go and kill, I think they had 700 doe tags or something crazy like that, or 600 doe tags. If you're going killing 80% of your those doe tags, your population's going to drop. You want to drop a population, you remove the females because us males have no problem
Right.
reproducing.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
if there's females out there. So
That's true.
that's where sometimes management, we do a lot of doe hunts and female species hunts that just doesn't quite make sense to me that a lot of other states don't do.
Yeah. I think they're doing those a lot of times just so people are having the opportunity, but they're not thinking the long-term
Effects.
on that. But I remember, because I spent a lot of time, I mean, we're right at the base of South Hills right
Yeah,
now.
you're right here.
I spent a lot of time up there just, you know, in the spring and whatnot, and because I love the shed hunt and that. And man, I used to see hundreds and hundreds of deer. And I went up this year, well, the last several years, honestly, you could see if you just spent time in the spring when they're down there on the winter grounds, you can see the decline in the numbers.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a degree to figure that out.
No.
Or fly it.
No.
Or fly it. Yeah,
Or fly,
exactly.
yeah. And that's where sometimes, I would love how my vision of how I would like SFW and other organizations to go is like, we could build this relationship with Fish and Game where we have like members like you, John, where you're like, I'm up here and it's bad.
Right.
You know, let them know before they're able to fly it again.
Right.
And have that relationship with Fish and Game that they listen.
Yeah.
Because it's two ways. I mean, sometimes we don't give the information and sometimes they don't listen.
I went to a meeting one time and Hobie, Hobie was there and some other guys too. And
Who's the local outfitter?
Yeah. Deadline Outfitters, yeah. And I thought he had some really great advice, but you get the sense that Fish and Game was thinking, just Hobie's doing it for his business, you know, which it probably would benefit his business, but if it's benefiting what he does, it's benefiting everybody else out there as well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, and I just felt a lot of the suggestions fell on deaf ears, and that the decisions were already made. They were just doing the meeting to.
He has done. I know since he's became the outfitter up there, he has pushed for a lot of things that, whether it is to benefit his business or not, but just as a whole, because he could see problems with management and stuff. So
Right.
I think it's been a good thing.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure they do listen to them to a point.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do.
It's one of those things that you kind of get, because when we were at that Boise Commission meeting, that was a huge eye opener for me. Kind of how, like I said multiple times, how much politics have to play in this. Because what you have is you have fish and game officers or fishing guys trying to become commission members, because that's promotions or in charge of everything.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's just every human nature. You want to do better at your job and you want to do it. But sometimes when you're in a government business, that's your politicking.
Yeah.
I call it a business because it is.
Yeah,
Sure.
And so they're just going to go politic to their superiors, and sometimes they don't like to listen to. That's like fishing game's biggest fault, in my opinion, is sometimes they just don't like to listen.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people I've talked to since I've joined, I'm like, hey, you won't come help. We're trying to do this fishing game. They're like, oh, fishing game doesn't listen. Well, but if we keep not saying anything,
Yeah.
they're just going to go operate,
Sure.
and they do listen to a point. They do have the redeeming, and are the redeeming people in there. But that's one of those things is where us as hunters and the outfitters should be their biggest resource. We're out there in the field, and if we say we don't see deer, we don't see deer. I mean, if the us three probably went into the field looking for elk or deer or whatever, we don't see any. It's not because we're lazy. I mean, you guys that's a seasoned hunter podcast, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's one of those things that I think they think most hunters are the guys just driving around in their truck and not getting out and doing anything. But I think hunting today is much more, you see a lot with the YouTube and social media, a lot more guys trying to be kind of the Cameron Haynes or the hard ass, trying to get out there and
feet
hike.
on the ground.
Feet on the ground.
I do agree with that because I've always done a lot of backcountry stuff, and you'd go back. If you would get 2 miles off a road, you're not going to see very many people. But of course, we'd be 4, 5, 6, 7 miles out back, and now I'm seeing more people back in those areas as well. Which is a good thing. But I do believe there's a lot of road hunting type.
Yeah, there still are, and there always will be.
Right.
I mean, that's just the nature of it, and that's okay because that's what they want to go do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are way more people like you just said that last I went up with my horses into Unit 48 last year, or maybe the year before, and I was up there 6 miles in the snow, and I roll up and there's a dude hiking. I'm like, good for you, man.
Right. Right.
It's like, and he's like, oh yeah. He's like, I just got into hunting 2 years ago. They're like the new people getting into hunting. That's what they're doing. They're not going
exactly.
More the people that are truck hunting and driving around are the ones that's what they've historically done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what because the people have been doing it forever. That's what they're grew up doing, because that's how hunting was, right?
Yeah.
Well, the new people are learning it off of YouTube, and that's what you see on there. So I think that makes it.
And it used to be successful. I know an old timer in town.
Exactly. I was going to say, probably back in the day, the animals there was so much more animals, you didn't have to get as far off.
Yeah. I don't know if it was necessarily more, I think we had more
pressure.
I think it was that. I think, if you look at mule deer, so whitetail deer, if you look at the studies, are best they've ever been.
Really?
In the history of the United States, because they do extremely well with agriculture. So every farm field in the Midwest has some whitetail rolling around on it, and we're getting whitetail growth here now.
Yeah. Are you seeing them locally?
I've seen a few.
Yeah.
I've seen a few. The weird part, I keep seeing them down in the canyon.
Yeah.
I've
never heard of that.
I've
heard of people
and
seeing
it's
them.
not like a mistake. It's they're giving me the white flag.
Right.
And running away well, that's a whitetail.
I remember one got hit, not too far from here on the road.
Yeah.
A buck.
And between Rock Creek Canyon and Snake River Canyon.
Yeah.
But whitetail will probably survive the apocalypse, in my opinion.
Right. They're like a cockroach.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
Yeah. But mule deer, if we're not careful, there's not going to be big mule deer anymore.
Agreed.
And that's where mule deer do extremely poorly with human pressure. And now in our nation, we have especially here in the West, everyone wants their 5 acre piece with their house on it, which, I mean, I want it. I'm going to be guilty, Right. I mean, but we're encroaching on mule deer habitat constantly every year. The invention of side-by-sides, there's more side-by-sides going down the road. They just don't handle that pressure.
Right.
Because they're just naturally such a fleeing animal that way less than elk, way less than antelope, way less than whitetail, moose, any other ungulate that we have.
Yeah.
And so that's where I always talk about deer, like we've been paying so much attention to elk for the last 20 years.
Right.
I think we've let mule deer kind of fall by the wayside.
I totally agree with that. 100%.
And I think South Hills is a good example. I mean, wasn't the archery record shot out of the South Hills back in 2002 or something?
I remember, before they even opened it, I knew they were talking about doing it, and I thought every record's going to be broken Idaho once that opens, and it did.
And so they pushed that, and then that elk herd, I said I didn't want any more tags, I want the elk herd in place, but there was so much focus on keeping that elk herd healthy that the deer herd, they were like, okay, we're not going to give opportunity for elk. So that's always the flip side. You don't, right? Not going to give more opportunity for elk, so we're going to give more for deer so people get in the field.
Right.
But then the deer suffer because we probably, I think in hindsight being 2020, everyone now realizes that all those doe tags were the wrong idea, and we shouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it's not too late. It's just going to take some years to.
I would say, and maybe I shouldn't give my opinion on this, but I would say 54 this season is probably going to be a good big buck season because of all the moisture. If you have a 54 tag, good for you.
Sure.
I have a 54 archery tag. That's why I did it. So, I just because of the moisture and there's less deer on the landscapes. Because when there is less deer on the landscape, there's actually not as many big bucks. There's more. That's where, like in Colorado, you could go to Colorado and trip over a 170, right? It's just because there's so many deer. That's kind of where they're fighting for feed and stuff like that. And so the fact that there's not as many, that there's going to be some big bucks that are going to get big this summer or getting big currently. But for the overall population to bounce back, you're probably a 5-year before it starts looking
that makes sense.
I mean, you got to get a couple fawn recruitments out there and need some help on some some winters, some nice winters.
True.
Yeah. Keep the predator population in check.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this winter was good. We got a lot of snow up there. It was like the perfect winter for them, but the snow came a little bit earlier. Yeah. And so I think it pushed them down so where they weren't stuck. So that's always the problem when they get stuck.
Yeah, do you remember the winter kill a few years ago? We had it hit so hard, so fast, a lot of them couldn't get to where they wanted to go.
Exactly.
And they did get stuck, and a lot of them died there.
Yeah.
As well as I feel like the fawns that have grown up for the last, let's just say as an example, the last 6 years, they were going and wintering, in the same spot. And because the winters weren't real tough, and then you get a heavy winter, and that's where they're used to wintering, and that's where they stayed, and then they were there.
Yeah.
That was a bad snow.
Yeah, and I think eastern Idaho, I've heard listen to guys like Robbie Denning, Robbie knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Saying that eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, this winter sucked.
Yeah,
it killed a lot of deer.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't venture
too.
I don't venture into eastern Idaho much.
Yeah.
So I haven't gone and scouted and seen for myself. But here in our units, I think even the Sun Valley units, I think the deer came out okay.
Oh, good.
In my opinion, and from talking to others also, I think because that storm came early and was light, that it started the migrations, so I think they were able to get out of the high country.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where being at SFW and meeting with Fish and Game is always very enlightening, because you can see wow, elk populations are rising, but mule deer are not. And so sometimes that's where sometimes at SFW you have to mention that to them, just you're overlooking this. And so that's kind of my goal, is to start building good relationships with Fish and Game so we can have those just candid conversations hey, just another set of eyes looking at things at times isn't bad. We're not trying to be overseers or anything. We just we want the same thing.
Right.
We want better habitat. We want more animals. We want more hunters. Because really, if we want hunting to survive, we need more hunting. But I can say with most of our public land that a lot of it's not getting hunted.
Yeah.
Just because we're all humans always travel to where it's easy, and where it's easy is kind of where we're at. And I'm guilty of it too. Maybe places like the Selway should be getting hunted more. It's rough, but maybe that's if some changes in the future, that if we want to hunt every year, maybe we need to some of us need to make sacrifices and kind of do what the non-residents did, where you have to pick your unit and don't get a hunt for 90 days to 120 days straight.
Right. Right.
Which is super rare. I don't think any of us in Idaho realize how rare it is. Utah's a 15-day season most of the time.
Yeah.
New Mexico is 5 days, I think.
Yeah.
So
a lot of places. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to complain one bit, but and we shouldn't take it for granted.
I'm going to use it as long as it's in place,
Right.
but I know it's one of those things that I know deep down it's probably not the best for the animals. When you have this migration of hunters, you'll see it at resident hunters, they'll go hunt 48 archery, 48, 49 archery, just throwing out units. Hunt them in the rifle too because it's over the counter. So those deer are getting chased from September 1, August 30th, through October 31st.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're taking a 2-week break and then hopping over into 55 or 39 for the open archery hunts.
Yeah.
You know, or that's just a lot of time. And a lot of those deer, like in 39, those are some of the same deer they were chasing in some of the other
just
units.
migrated.
You know, they just migrated. So they're just getting constantly hammered.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no real respite. That's why units 45 and 52 are so important because that's the winter ground. So that's where SFW came in a few years back. They were wanting to turn those very petty. They were having Fish and Game was having a dispute with the landowners for how they were handling their landowner tax is the only way I can really say it. And so they wanted to turn those into over-the-counter hunts.
Oh.
And so, but SFW is like, you can't. It's the best hunt for a reason because that's where all the deer come to.
Yeah.
They're all piling in there. So you need to leave it because, or else you're not going to have any more deer. That's kind of what we've seen with the elk now up there in those ways. I don't know if you guys hunt up there because I archery hunt for elk in 48. The elk have gone down since they've opened up all these cow tags in 45 and 52.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're migrating into, and then they're getting hammered. It's just hammered.
So I feel like they do all those hunts in those winter ranges because the ranchers and stuff are complaining about.
And that is 100% true.
Yeah.
That's the real reason. They see it as they need to appease. It's the easy decision. Because you have ranchers that are complaining and you have hunters that want to hunt. So like, let's put them together.
Yeah.
It's problem solved. But at the end of the day, us as sportsmen, if we want to be really conservationists, that's not the line of thinking we should take. We need to work with the ranchers. And that's where us as hunters need to realize that the ranching community is our biggest asset because they're feeding our animals all winter.
Right.
You know, so we want them to be on our side. We don't want to go fight them.
Right.
We need to find common ground with them.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where it's very unpopular and for me to say, but kind of our laws with landowner tags for them is pretty backwards in comparison to other states. You know, people say, they shouldn't profit, but the deer, it's their land.
Right.
Deer and elk are eating it.
Right.
You know, I just giving them the tag and then that can't market it and sell it. I mean, if it was an actual resource to them that, I can make a profit off this, they're only getting like 2 tags.
Right.
You know, it's not taking that many animals off the landscape.
Right.
Right.
So are you guys trying to get that changed? Have you worked on that or no?
It's one of those things that we all pretty much agree on. But there's so much pushback from the local community on that. There's such a ingrained cultural pushback on that it's really it's not a fight worth having.
Gotcha.
You know, so that's where we're going about other ways, like trying to help them with the counting and say look, let's do it this way with making sure we're getting good harvest reports. That's something we can go handle. You know, that's where we mentioned with them with the helicopter is they don't own one, but we've talked and spit around the idea maybe we can go and fundraise to help them procure one so we can fly every year.
Yeah.
You know, SFW does not want to own the helicopter, but we want to help them get the helicopter.
Sure.
You know, we don't want the insurances and stuff like that. We don't want any of that.
Right.
But that's where we've talked with people. We have a lot of helicopter pilots right here in the Magic Valley.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of them would I know a few that work for Lifelight that would probably donate time.
Yeah.
You know, because it's the same thing. It's most people will, and you call them, they'll donate time.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have money, but time is very readily available.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of approach we're taking right now. We're with the landowner tags idea. It's just I got in a Facebook argument. I shouldn't have even engaged the person.
Right. Yeah. I learned that lesson a long time ago. The laptop, delete.
Yeah. Block.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a guy I know, semi-local here, and we just have 2 very different opinions. And I'm just the one, if I had a landowner and I didn't get any benefit for these animals on my property, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
You know, saying you're giving them a tag that they can probably go get in the normal draws.
Yeah.
Anyway, because it's a draw for landowner tags. People don't realize they don't
Yeah.
just get them. It's
Exactly.
it's its own draw system.
Right.
Which is also in of itself very different than other states. But good for Fish and Game because they're not putting more tags out there in the
Right.
landscape. You know, so what the rules is landowners get a 10% of what the available tags are for elk and deer.
Is that what it is? 10%?
10%. Except for units 45 and 52, it's 25.
Okay.
So, so when they say like unit 54, there's 300 buck tags. There's actually 330 buck tags because 30 tags are going to the landowner. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, and so you can be put into the draw if you have over a square mile in property within the unit,
Right.
A continuous. So that's 666 acres or something like that.
640.
640, something like that. And then you can apply for a second tag if you have over, I want to say 3,000. So normally guys are just getting, like I said, and then the elk tags, that's even less if you look at it.
Yeah.
There's only 60 elk tags, so
Yeah.
you're only 6 landowner elk
Right.
tags floating around. So it's not like the landowners are getting all this benefit. Like there's a couple ranches, I'm going to keep the ranch owners' names out of it, that are right along that
Yeah.
bulls. I've seen them in July. They live on the ranch year round. They just
Yeah.
don't leave.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then Fish and Game tried to issue them summer depredation tags to try to push them off, but the public fought it so much that they didn't. So the rancher's like, well, I'm a cattle operation. Like I need the feed for my livelihood and to pay the bank, but now I have all these elk on here. And then Fish and Game's like, well, we can't have anyone come in here and hunt because it's your private ground. You don't want people running amok. And we don't want to issue these depredation tags that you can control because the public's going to eat us alive.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really a hard balance.
Yeah, that
it's
is.
something that really needs to be addressed with some clear minds. Because I've been in the meetings before and it gets brought up, and you're going to have 4 or 5 people that get very, very
Pissed.
intense
Right.
and adamant, yelling, swear words. You know, and it's like
Definitely not the people that should be making the decisions. Right?
Yeah, if you can't come
Somebody
to
without a dog in the
It turns
fight.
into an emotional thing.
Exactly.
You
When
know,
emotion gets into it, you need to be removed.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if you can't think objectively, that's where with me where I'm not necessarily a trophy hunter, but I want to hunt something with some age. I know how to score animals. I don't necessarily care about the score. Like I showed you,
Yeah.
Daryl, a couple bucks I shot
Yeah.
that didn't score well, but were really unique and cool. But that's where it comes to like, I want that, but I also know a lot of people just want to go hunt every year, you know?
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to have clear minds like, okay, how do we come to the table with Fish and Game and the general public and landowners on how we can work something out so that the Fish and Game, if the Fish and Game didn't have to pay landowners all the time for deals, they could buy their own helicopter and they could fly every year. But us as hunters sometimes are too pig-headed to realize that.
Yeah.
That we're actually hurting ourselves just because we want someone else to not have something we can't get.
Yeah. True.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's like what I said about 54 earlier. I'm not one of means that I'm going to be able to go buy a 54 elk tag.
Right.
The going market rate for one of those tags would be outrageous. But it doesn't mean I don't want someone else to be able to go get the tag.
Sure, right.
I'm totally fine. Good for them.
Yeah.
Go be able to buy it. If you got the means, buy it.
I like them getting those 54 tags because I get to go film some of those hunts, and at least I get to go.
Yeah,
I mean-
exactly.
I mean, that's not for everybody. Doesn't get to do that. I understand, but
Yeah, I don't.
I'm fortunate.
Have a buddy that draws it. I got a buddy who drew it this year. I'm gonna try to get up there with him. Just
Should.
the experience is
Yeah,
so cool. And
Should.
film it too.
I had a buddy that hunted with Hobie up there last year and shot a 402
Wow.
Yeah.
in the muzzleloader hunt. And it's, you don't know a 400-inch bull until you touch one.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. He was telling me he was driving up because he took it down to a place in Salt Lake with Hobie to get replicas made. Because
Yeah.
Hobie wanted a bull that size. Hobie wanted some
Yeah.
replicas, and he went down to pick it up down Salt Lake area, and he was driving through downtown Salt Lake or down on the I-15 in the
Yeah.
middle of traffic, and he's like, "I'm getting a lot of looks," and he said, and he's like, "Well, doesn't help that my bull doesn't fit in my long bed pickup. And it's hanging out. And the whale tails are hanging out the back.
Wow.
He's like, I only got an inch on each side of the pickup too.
Wow.
So I don't think people realize how truly special that elk unit is. And anyone that can have a chance to go on someone's elk hunt up there, absolutely should.
Absolutely.
It's cool.
Amazing. Any of those hunts up there, honestly, getting off subject, but I've filmed several moose hunts too. And it's just so much fun to get to go on them, you know. It's an honor. I mean, so that's where some of those things, it's like, and that's where sometimes the fight needs to take place. And not say fight maybe is too brash of a word, but it's like, well, we want to keep it. We don't need more. We have so much elk hunting opportunity in this state. We don't need 15 more tags thrown out there into our prune unit. And
that is true. That's so true. And
it wouldn't hurt the population, but you're going to cut that top end right off.
100%.
So you'd go from hunting. So the top end, I'd say, maybe you guys agree, is probably 380. 380 is probably the top.
I would say,
You're probably going to cut that down to a 360.
Yeah. I've heard people say, oh, the elk hunting's not like it was down there. But it still is.
Oh, it is.
It's just as good to me.
Hobie won't tell you.
Well, no,
he'll tell you as good as ever.
I'm not even talking about Hobie saying, just to other people. It's like, it's just as good as now as it was back when they first opened it because of the good management.
Exactly. It's a management success story. It's truly what it is. And anyone that draws that tag, it's so unique because it's not that physically demanding either.
True.
So you can get around on a side-by-side. Old guys have gone on it and killed really good elk. It's especially for the moose hunting too. Like some of these guys getting these moose tags, it's great. Great opportunity. Yeah. And that's just where kind of, I guess, where our vision of SFW is that there's a place for everyone at the end of the day. And there's a way we can change management structure, tag structure. Just because we've done it one way for the last 40 years doesn't mean we need to continue down the same path. Just because that's what people are used to. Yeah. There's a little thing I read the other day that was talking about the width of rail cars on the tracks. It's like 4 feet, 5 inches or something really random. And it was talking about why it was built that way. And it was because, that was what the jigs were for wagons, and that's what the jigs were for chariots, and it went way back into Roman times, and that's why the width of those train cars. So it's like next time you say, why is it done this way? And someone says it's always been done this way, doesn't mean it's necessarily the right way.
Right, sure.
That's just what it was. If we're dating down rail car track width to dating it back to Roman times, maybe when we first did that, now you can't change it because you can only do it.
Exactly.
But that's just where we're at here. It's like, just because we've done it this way doesn't mean you have to do it the same way forever. Like this is Dallin Casperson opinion, not SFW. I've spoken to some of my members about it, and some of them agree, is that we should probably go into a draw-only state for management, but some of the tags are unlimited draw. So you can hunt every year, but you're going to hunt 36 every year. And you're going to hunt during the season that you pick. And maybe it's more like zones, where you have your elk zones, where you have one hunt early and you can have a hunt late. So you have a bull hunt early and a cow hunt late, something like that. That's where you can go and find something for everyone. And then we got to go pick what we're doing. It would just disperse us all out. We have all this benefit of all this public land that we're not utilizing that we could. True. Where that would just force us to do it. If we don't force ourselves to do it, no one else will do it. So that's Dallin Casperson, armchair quarterback, is looking at it and saying, and it's a similar situation to what Colorado does with their mule deer. And everyone calls Colorado a mule deer factory, but we got better genetics than Colorado does. Our mule deer, I think, would bounce back immensely if we were able to do that. Have be able to fly units and get actual counts to be able to do disbursement and management. And then some guys, it would help out because, and this is where sometimes we all have to sacrifice, is you might not be able to hunt 54 elk ever because you're going to go put in for your own elk hunt so you can hunt every year, but you're sacrificing for the chance of 54. But then the guy that doesn't hunt, maybe there's some guys that hunt other states like we do. I know you hunt other states. I don't know if you do, John.
I do.
Yeah.
So I can never draw a tag.
Where we know we're going to go hunting somewhere in the West that we'd maybe sacrifice hunting Idaho for a year for a chance to draw 54, and our odds would be better.
Yeah, so, but we're limited to people doing that for sure.
So, and like I said, that's.
Do you feel opinion. like I'm going to use antelope as an example. They do the unlimited tags for that on the late hunt archery, and I feel like it has pushed. People want to freaking hunt, so they're gonna put in for those tags versus. So it helps the harder draws because less people are putting in for it, which is awesome. But the counter side of that is there's a lot more people hunting that unlimited tag hunt now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've seen that personally.
And I think that a little bit an adjustment to that, because I do the unlimited archery antelope. I think we all do.
We all do. Yeah.
It's a pretty fun hunt. Really.
Absolutely.
I think a little flip to that would be is if you did it that it's first choice only.
Yeah.
Well, it is first choice only on the antelope.
Is it?
It is.
Some units.
Well,
some
the
uses
units we hunt. Yeah, it is first choice only. And I have seen an increase in hunters out there. I was kind of hoping for the opposite effect, to be honest with you.
Because that's where it's like, I think because I do the archery hunt for antelope, but I'm definitely more of a mule deer hunter. So I invest a lot of my time. So when I do the Unit 53 Unlimited or Unit 54 Unlimited,
right?
I do think a lot of people use it as a backstop,
right?
Exactly. And I think that some of the same attitude is like, this is a really cool hunt, but you got to be your first choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I normally do those because I do sheep hunt. I put in for sheep every year.
Exactly.
So that's like I can still put in for those, and I really appreciate that. And I would like that not to change for selfish reasons.
No, 100%. Yeah. I think we all would. I like having the unlimited tags myself.
Yeah.
But I do feel like when they put it first choice, or people want to hunt, so they did use it. I'm talking antelope because that's out there already. People were using it as a backstop, which I haven't used it for backstop for a lot of years, but I used to, and try and draw the early one. Whereas now it probably made that earlier the earlier hunt easier to draw. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot more people hunting that unlimited first choice tag.
And I think that's just because more people are learning. And you've seen it like last year, Unit 53 tag holders. It was the year before it was like 300, and it jumped to like 560. So like you see it in the mule deer side too, because people are
right.
I mean, good job on the bow shops and getting people in archery equipment.
Right.
I mean, people are starting to learn if they want to hunt every year, that's probably the ticket.
Right. Exactly.
And that's, to me, is like, so that's like the flip side, is that's going to become, if I were a betting man, that's just going to become our over the counters. So it's going to be like an over the counter. So you're going to see more in those unlimited. Sadly, I think the age of us when we would go out up into Stanley Basin hunting antelope, and there's no one out there,
right.
It's just us.
Right.
I think those are sadly probably going away.
They are.
It's just one of those things people catch onto the curve. Mm-hmm. But that is on the other side. If you're okay not hunting antelope that year, your draw odds on that earlier hunt just got that much better.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's just where.
But then if you want it for sheep, you got to hunt unlimited sheep.
Yeah,
that's true too, though.
Yeah, if only we could do more sheep tags.
Right.
But that's just kind of my view on that. I don't know how else to change it, but that's just where if you want everyone to hunt, we're going to have more hunters of field.
Right.
And if we want better quality, we're going to have less hunters of field.
Right.
So I think like small steps, distinction for like fishing game would be to like classify like 54 as a trophy, and we're going to manage it like trophy quality. I think Utah does a great example of that, where they have their general deer tags you can put in for and gain points for, and then you have your limited, your Henry Mountains and Ponsegant tags that you can put in for, and they're like, we're managing these ones for opportunity, which big bucks get taken out of those general ones all the time. Mm-hmm. I think the state archery record for Utah actually got taken out of the cache, which is like you can draw to like 2,000, 3,000 archery tags get issued for that every year, and it was not on private land, it was on public ground. And where you can have that distinction so people can choose, and we have so many units, and maybe it's just like picking and choosing. It's like 44 to me has always been kind of like a middle ground unit, where the fishing game hasn't really decided, is it a trophy unit or is it a other ones, because it has great buck potential. I drew that archery tag in 2020, and that was probably the fun, or 2019, excuse me, one of the funnest archery hunts. I didn't get to kill anything because I was going after some really big bucks, but it was fun.
But you're seeing some really big bucks.
But then the year after, they go at 400 doe tags to it. So it's like, that doesn't make any sense. You want this hunt to be good, but then you're adding all these doe tags.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Like, we don't need to kill that many does.
Yeah.
I think the idea that people are only surviving off of game meat to live is so antiquated that's like the biggest thing they're worrying about. And that people argument is like, well, I eat my butt. We eat our deer every year, all year long. I'm like, well, I kill a deer or two almost every single year. My family of 4 puts that away
pretty quick.
Yeah. Right? And beef, honestly, if you can't do it now, beef is cheaper.
If you count it up, for sure.
And so that idea that we're doing for sustenance living is just it's just not there. It's a modern world that doesn't exist, but that argument is still taking place at commission.
Now Alaska is a different thing. Where you can kill a moose, a few caribou each. They do rely on that.
For sure. If you could kill a moose, I mean, that's bigger. That's two steers.
Yeah,
worth of meat. I can totally see that. You can kill a moose, a caribou, a Dall sheep, grizzly bear, whatever the heck you want.
Some of the residents, some areas, you can kill like up to 5 caribou a year per person in your family.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's...
I have a friend up there that lives there, and he kills a moose every year, a Dall sheep every year, and a caribou every year. And his family truly does eat that all year, but that makes sense. I mean, a caribou's very good size. Yeah. Not quite the size of an elk, but very good sized. Dall sheep are small.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that. There's some, like after shooting one,
sure tasty.
They're man, and moose are huge.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't want to be alone to pack a moose out. That's for sure. Especially the moose up there.
No kidding.
A lot bigger than our moose down here. So,
right on. Well, we really appreciate your time. You've opened my eyes on some things with SFW and.
Thank you. I'm glad I did.
And we appreciate any comments and stuff from the viewers on the YouTube channel to comment back. Are you on Instagram or anything?
I am. My Instagram is Dallin Hunts. So that's my kind of hunting public Instagram.
Spell that out.
Dallin, then just Hunts.
Okay.
It's all together.
Put that on the end of this here.
Yeah. So that's where I just kind of go. I have a lot of friends, so that's just where I post my hunting, and stuff, kind of projects I'm working on.
But if somebody wants to get a hold of you
I'm on it all.
for helping out.
Yeah, they can get through. They can go through there. They can reach me through they can call Charmac Trailers and get a hold of me that way too.
Okay,
I'm around. So, and also I'm very open. If someone disagrees with a bunch of stuff I say, I'm not one to shy away from educated conversation.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to say, "Hey, Dallin, you're an idiot," I'm like, "Let's go to lunch and let's hash out how I'm an idiot," and I'd love to hear opposing views, because that's the only way we can learn. Right. And maybe some us at SFW have it all wrong, and we just haven't seen some things. It happens.
Yeah.
It'd be very naive of me to think that I have all the answers, or SFW has all the answers, or Scott Allen or any of the other members have all the answers, because we don't.
Yeah.
But we try our best.
How often do you guys have meetings?
So we are bi-weekly, so every other week on Thursdays.
Are they open to the public?
Yes, you can come to the Curry Country Store.
Okay.
Is that where they're at?
Yeah, so we do that. So we got people in Buell and Twin Falls, so we kind of call it the middle ground. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if you want to come on down, we're
Thursday,
more welcome.
every other Thursday, what time?
Every other Thursday at, I think 5:30, 6 o'clock, 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So, yeah, until about 7.
Cool.
So,
appreciate your time very much.
Thank you guys. It's a great conversation. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. John, have fun this week.
Thank you.
Take some aspirin with you.
I plan to.
And we'll be talking to you soon, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Make sure you smash the like button and subscribe.
All the fun stuff.
Yep. Bye.